we will go ahead and defer to say that is not only a universal word, but it is a word that is widespread. And I'm only offering a few languages in Kukongo. Bantu Congo languages are innumerable. So I don't know how many other languages carry it, but we all lead back to the same root. So our next word we'll come into is the ubiquitous ben, B-N, or as we say, bet nun. And this means son or child in Hebrew. Now, some also in Arabic, as you so call the language, you have, of course, Muhammad ibn Abdullah. And then you have in the Hebrew, so-called Israelite movement, you have Yahweh ben Yahweh, which means, I am the son of I am, or God, the son of God, Yahweh, the son of Yahweh, whatever you want to call it. But anyway, ben meaning son or child. Now, in Kikuyu, Kiswahili, Chibimba, and Kimeru, that word ben is pronounced mwana. M-W-A-N-A. Mwana. And it means child. So the pronunciation mwana, by rule, the M and the B are synonymous. Now, in Kikongo, we have the word mwana, identical pronunciation, which means child, but it's spelled M-U-A-N-A. Same word. In Chivinda, we have also mwana, spelled the same as in the previous definitions and presentation with the M-W-A-N-A. However, it is also pronounced Nwana, N-W-A-N-A. And that, as again, means child. So this so-called ben is actually pronounced Mwana. Now, the next word we'll come to is spelled in Hebrew, Mem, Ra, Wa, Mem. And this is often pronounced Marum. And the Hebrew definition is a hill or a mountain, height or elevation. As we can see that this is nothing more than a version of the Kibantu Congo word Meru, which means mountain. This was presented in lesson 401. However, it means mountain. The M at the end is actually similar in Hebrew as the N nasal in Yoruba or other Bantu languages. An example of this is the word Nganga being synonymous with Nganga. Identical words. And now, the next word we come to in Hebrew is spelled Nun Ra, N-R, and it is often pronounced Nar or Nara, for instance. And this is to mean lamp or a light. Now, this N-R, Nar, is really in actuality derived from the Ede Yoruba Olukumi word Olorun, Rune and Ra. Now, how is Nar actually Rune? Well, again, we reverse the spelling. It's a simple reversal of the spelling. This is why I say we must do our own research and our own studies rather than resting on the accepted paradigm and ways of thinking as those trying to explain our story to us. Do you understand? So then, we come to the Hebrew word spelled G-B-W or O-R-H. And in Hebrew that is spelled Gimel Bet Wa Ra He. And this means strength. And what the Hebrew pronunciation is supposed to be is Gabora. However, again, this word is identical in its derivation from the Ede-Yoruba Olukoni word Ajbara and Ijbora, which means strength and power. Now, Ajbara, many people do not relate the Hebrew language to Ede-Yoruba. They relate the people oftentimes, but they do not relate the language. Now, why is this important? Because in Hebrew, the word Gabora actually separates a letter combination, which is standard in Ede-Yoruba Olukoni. And that letter combination is GB. So it is not pronounced Gabora. It is pronounced Jba. And that is in Ajbara and Ijbora. Do you understand? So the next word we come to is the very common word spelled in Hebrew, Ra-Wa-Het, which is R-W-K-H. And this is oftentimes pronounced Ruach. And this is seen in the first book of the so-called Tanakh and Genesis, either 1 or 2, something like that. Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 or 2. But anyway, it is in Hebrew, Ruach, meaning spirit, air in motion, mind, breath, and air. And now what we have to understand here is why some of our Western ways of thinking, me also being a victim as a culprit, our Western ways of thinking oftentimes divide. You know, the European way of thinking divides things into a dichotomy rather than expound upon them together as a unified whole. This is why the European did not have a real understanding of what our people and many peoples of the world were saying with so many symbolic representations of who they said is the great creator. They said that everything around us, including us, is as one, the great creator. Whereas the Europeans said that this was one creator that created everything individually. Like we're just completely separated from all things in the universe. It makes no sense. We create, and along with everything else in the universe, the creator. See, this is the Ukongo way of thinking versus the European dichotomy in his thinking. So this can also be seen when in some of the old Greek plays or whatever you want to call those things. Some of the Greek writing, they had what you call the soliloquy, and they also said that the spirit was like another person outside of you talking to you or something like that, because they didn't know how to amalgamate the real from the incorporeal in their thinking. So anyway, again, the word ruach, spirit, air in motion, mind, breath, and just air in general. Now, this most prominent or the most basic pronunciation and spelling and usage of it is all throughout Kukongo. If we refer to Kiswahili, this word is actually pronounced ruo. Ruo. And I think I'm close on the pronunciation because it's actually spelled R-O-H-O. And now we know in the Hebrew language, the letter het, K-H, is actually supposed to be pronounced a guttural ch. So it's actually an aspirated H sound, which again refers back to R-O-H-O. And in our Bantu Congo languages, universally, this means the mind, the conscience, the conscious, the heart, emotions, all of these things together, because they know that all these things were a part of us, but we just couldn't see them. We didn't know where they were. Do you understand? See, the European would give you a good angel on the right shoulder and a devil angel on the left shoulder, and you think it's okay. But when our people are using this one word or one word terms, we think that, it's something that's foreign to our way of thinking. The word ruo is also pronounced ru, spelled R-O-O. And again, with the pronunciation, if I miss that pronunciation or any of them, please correct me. But the concept is here, the information is there, and we can sit on that. So the next word we will come to is spelled Ain Yod Ra. And this word is supposed to be, of course, Ir, which is supposed to mean city. And unfortunately, this is supposed to be the root word Ur also. But the word is actually derived from the Yoruba word Ile, or also pronounced Ilu. Now, by rule, we know the R and the L are interchangeable. There are actually some languages, as a matter of fact, ancient Kikuma for one, there was no L that existed in the language, not written language, but of course spoken, they are synonymous. They're interchangeable. So when you see words that are spelled in ancient Kikuma with an R, you also have to keep the thought in the back of your mind that you need to also look for the translations of that word with the L. So this word supposed to be Ir in Hebrew is actually Ile or Ilu in Ede Yoruba Olukoni, and it means city. Now, my next translation actually takes that a step further and clears up something that is completely incorrect about this so-called Hebrew language. And it starts off being the very first letter in their alphabet, which is Aleph. Now, the word Aleph is not really Aleph. The Arabic Alif is not really Alif. The word is actually Ile Ife, or where the Yoruba Olukoni said they originated. They said that they were created in Ile Ife. This is why the beginning of the alphabet, Aleph Beta in Hebrew, or Aleph Bait, is actually Ile Ife, the origin, the beginning, the start. They'll tell you in Greek it's the alpha, the beginning, but you don't connect the two. But this is why we do these lessons. So when you see that letter, you recognize that it is actually a concept of the origin of the beginning. Not only that, when you see that, as you call Aleph, more properly pronounced Ile Ife, you also see that letter in ancient Kikuma and the symbol for land or nation, which is an X. So this is how you know it's talking about a place of very prominent origin. Because, again, Omo Yoruba, Olukoni, and Dugomo are actually the ancient Bakuma. So they use the same letter, concept, and term. So next, we come to the word spelled Nun Ein Mem. N long A M. And sometimes this is seen as Nun Ein Mem Yod. And this is to mean pleasant and kind words or kindness. Now, the pronunciation in Hebrew is supposed to be Naom. And this is also supposed to be the origin of the name Naomi or Naomi. But we have to correct that as well. So we take it back to isiZulu, and the word is actually pronounced Nama. Nama. N-A-M-A. And it literally means content or pleased. As I said before, isiZulu, you find many translations of the Hebrew language in our isiZulu also. And I'm not familiar with Swazi, but to my understanding, they're all pretty much one.